vampire final solution.
Can't win this war alone.
Who the hell are you people?
My father meant for us to help you.
Whistler's daughter. What the hell makes you think you know about hunting vampires?
When Blade, Trinity hit theaters in 2004, it arrived as the third and final chapter in the original Blade trilogy, a series that had redefined the comic book movie genre long before the modern superhero boom. Following the massive success of Blade and Blade, IS final installment carried heavy expectations. The film sought to close out the story of the Daywalker, the half-human, half-vampire warrior who has spent his life waging war against the forces of the undead. Directed by David S. Goyer, who had written the first two films, Blade, Trinity brought a different energy to the franchise, one that blended dark, action-driven storytelling with a sharper, more modern tone. It aimed to push the Blade mythos into new directions while giving the character his most dangerous challenge yet. Set in a world where vampires are once again rising to dominance, the story begins with Blade continuing his relentless crusade against them. However, his brutal tactics have made him a wanted man in the eyes of humans. After being framed for a series of murders and exposed to the public, Blade finds himself hunted not only by vampires, but also by the authorities. This new vulnerability forces him to adapt, making alliances and confronting deeper conspiracies that reach far beyond his previous battles. His enemy this time is unlike any he has faced before Dracula, the original vampire resurrected in modern times to lead his kind into a new age. Known here as Drake, this ancient creature represents the purest form of vampirism, older, stronger, and more powerful than anything Blade has ever encountered. The movie introduces new characters who join Blade in his war. After years of operating alone, Blade reluctantly teams up with a group known as the Nightstalkers, a secret team of vampire hunters who share his mission. Among them are Abigail Whistler, the daughter of Blade's mentor, and Hannibal King, a wisecracking former vampire who brings humor and wit to the team. Their dynamic adds a new flavor to the series, mixing camaraderie and tension as they fight to save humanity from extinction. The Nightstalkers use cutting-edge technology and a scientific approach to vampire hunting, balancing out Blade's raw, instinctive combat style. Together, they work to uncover the vampire plan that threatens to change the world forever. At the heart of the film is the resurrection of Dracula, the original source of the vampire curse. His presence changes everything. Portrayed as a creature of immense power and ancient knowledge, Drake embodies the ultimate predator immune to sunlight, capable of shape-shifting and ruthless in his belief that vampires should rule over humans. His confrontation with Blade becomes more than a physical battle. It's a clash of ideologies between predator and protector, darkness and light. The film explores the nature of power, immortality, and what it truly means to be human, with Blade standing as the bridge between two worlds that can never coexist peacefully. The tone of Blade, Trinity, is noticeably different from its predecessors. While Blade and Blade were steeped in gothic atmosphere and horror aesthetics, the third installment leans into a more modern, slick, and stylized presentation. The action sequences are faster, the humor more pronounced, and the visuals brighter compared to the shadowy worlds of the earlier films. This shift in tone was both a creative experiment and a reflection of early 2000s action cinema, where fast editing, high-energy music, and a mix of seriousness and sarcasm defined blockbuster storytelling. Still, at its core, the film retains the same gritty spirit and martial arts-driven action that made Blade a cultural icon. Wesley Snipes returned as the titular hero, once again bringing his signature intensity and physical prowess to the role. His portrayal of Blade had by this point become legendary, stoic, disciplined, and deadly, embodying the perfect balance between hero and anti-hero. Snipes' performance maintained the cold precision and strength that fans loved, even as the movie around him introduced more humor and new faces. Joining him were Jessica Biel as Abigail Whistler and Ryan Reynolds as Hannibal King. Biel brought quiet strength and determination, channeling the resilience of a warrior carrying on her father's legacy. Reynolds added comic relief and youthful energy, contrasting Blade's stoicism with sarcastic charm, a dynamic that gave the film a lighter edge in its darker moments. The relationship between Blade and the Nightstalkers becomes one of the film's emotional anchors. Initially resistant to working with others, Blade slowly learns to trust his new allies, realizing that the fight against vampires is larger than himself. His bond with Abigail carries echoes of his connection to her father, while his clashes with Hannibal provide both humor and grudging respect. Together, they represent the passing of the torch, a symbolic hint at a new generation of hunters ready to continue the war. Even though Blade remains the unstoppable force at the center, the Nightstalkers' inclusion expands the scope of the story, suggesting a broader universe where humanity can fight back against the night. Visually, Trinity continued the franchise's reputation for stylish, hard-hitting action. The film features elaborate fight choreography, car chases, and explosive battles that blend martial arts, sword combat, and gunplay. The action sequences are amplified by sleek cinematography and modern effects, giving every movement a sense of rhythm and precision. The filmmakers leaned heavily on practical stunts combined with early 2000s digital effects to create an intense, kinetic visual experience. The design of Dracula and his minions added to the horror aspect, with mutated vampires and grotesque transformations showing the darker side of the mythology. The soundtrack, as in previous films, mixed electronic beats and industrial sounds, creating an atmosphere that felt both futuristic and menacing. One of the film's major narrative threads revolves around a biological weapon called the Daystar virus, developed by the Nightstalkers to eliminate vampires at the genetic level. The idea that science could end the vampire curse gives the story a unique twist, blending science fiction with horror and action. As Blade and his team race against time to perfect and deploy this weapon, they face betrayal, loss, and personal sacrifice. The final act of the film builds to an epic confrontation between Blade and Drake, a duel that represents centuries of conflict distilled into one battle. Their fight is brutal and symbolic, pitting the ultimate vampire against the ultimate hunter in a struggle for survival and identity. Throughout the movie, themes of legacy, sacrifice, and humanity run deep. Blade's internal struggle as a being who belongs to neither world continues to define him. In many ways, this final installment brings his journey full circle from a lone avenger to a reluctant leader who understands that his mission is not only to destroy monsters, but to protect the fragile balance between light and darkness. His decision in the climax reflects his growth, as he embraces the cost of his existence while ensuring that the next generation can carry on the fight. The ending offers a sense of closure while leaving room for imagination about Blade's future, a fitting farewell to one of the most influential heroes in early superhero cinema. Despite facing mixed reception, Trinity remains an ambitious entry that dared to expand the universe and explore new tones. It showcased a transitional moment in superhero filmmaking, bridging the darker, R-rated roots of comic adaptations with the emerging mainstream style that would soon dominate Hollywood. The combination of horror, action, and humor created a distinctive flavor that still stands out among its peers. The film also left a legacy of memorable characters and moments, from Blade's relentless coolness to the dynamic teamwork of the Nightstalkers and the mythic presence of Dracula. In retrospect, Trinity represents both an end and a beginning. It concluded Wesley Snipes' iconic trilogy while hinting at the broader possibilities of the Blade mythos. The movie's influence can still be felt in the way modern superhero films approach anti-heroes, hybrid tones, and genre blending. It reminded audiences that comic book movies could be brutal, stylish, and morally complex long before the genre became a cultural juggernaut. While not as critically acclaimed as its predecessors, it remains a bold and memorable chapter in the Blade Saga, one that dared to evolve the story of the Daywalker and explore what happens when legends face their own legacy. The legacy of Blade, Trinity continues to endure through its characters, its impact on comic book adaptations, and the enduring popularity of Wesley Snipes' portrayal. Even years after its release, fans continue to debate its themes, its tone, and its place in the trilogy. What cannot be denied is that it marked the end of an era, a conclusion to a series that began with a groundbreaking film that paved the way for the entire superhero genre as we know it today. The world of Blade remains a testament to the power of style, imagination, and conviction, and Blade, Trinity stands as the final, fiery spark in that unforgettable trilogy.